Can you give us a thumbs up? All right. Call the workshop to order at 5:15. Can you do a roll, please?
Councilmember Cole?
Here.
Councilmember Schwer?
Here.
Councilmember Wong?
Here.
Councilmember Nordby?
Here.
Mayor Monge?
Here. Thank you very much. All right, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda, please?
So moved.
So move, Councilmember Swear.
Second.
Second, Councilmember Norby. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Topics tonight are all going to be on the community center. First up is community center next steps, and we're going to have Finance Director Mr. Winnick that's going to speak to this.
Mayor, council members, thank you very much for allowing me to speak on the community center the next steps. We're going to continue where we were at our last workshop. And this next slide kind of shows you what we had talked about as some of our next steps as far as what we're going to gather, present, and discuss. The first one was the clarification and or the modifications of the grant terms, and we had an individual here from DEED last workshop, so we've kind of covered that topic. Tonight, what is being highlighted is we're going to talk about the services and the importance of a library in North St. Paul. We're fortunate enough to have Pang Yang here, who's the Deputy Director of the Ramsey County Libraries, here to give a presentation. I think you'll find it very informative. And then we'll move on to interest in partnerships at the community center. We have a draft of an RFI. We want to get your comments, your viewpoints before we end up advertising that and publishing that out on the street to find out what interest there is in any partnerships opportunities for the community center. In the future, we'll be talking and looking at more closer of an exam on the current and the future lease options for the library. Just as a reminder, the current lease that we have with the library in its current space runs for 20 years from 2010 to 2030. And so everybody is aware of that. We'll get into more depth on some possibilities as far as options for the library. Then we'll have to develop a RFP for community development services, or community engagement services. That was an important component that City Council has expressed, that they want to have a lot of community engagement. So we need to work on getting somebody to help us, assist us in that process, so we can hold some evening meetings, different nights, different times, so we can get the public out and hear their interest in the community center, what services they feel that will be beneficial for them, and so allowing you, City Council, to be able to make a more informed decision. We've scratched off interest in selling the community center and costs to vacate the community center. That was the decision of the City Council. And then we will be talking eventually about the services that will be provided. A lot of that will come from our community engagement. A lot of that will come from what we get back from the RFI as far as partnerships and interest in the community center. And then once we've gotten to that level of information, then we can start to generate some costs to operate the community center now and into the future. And then we can start running some financial scenarios and potential impacts to help you make your final decision. With that, we're going to move right on now to the presentation from Pang Yang. Again, she is Deputy Director for the Ramsey County Libraries.
Dan, to be clear on that, when you said vacate or to sell, we said at this time, we wanted to look forward as far as, I think that's what it was said, correct? As far as ruling, we want to look forward to other options. So did you say that, was that off the table? Is that what you said, the way you worded it?
Yes, that was my understanding from last City Council, that there wasn't the interest in doing that. We had proposed that.
We're looking at pursuing the other options first.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I heard, but I just didn't know the other part of it. Thank you.
So with that, Pang, I will stop sharing.
Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all. I'm very happy and excited to be here.
A little bit about me while I pull up my slide here. My name is Pang Yang. I am Ramsey County Library's Deputy Director and Acting Department Head. I grew up in libraries. I was that library kid that walked to the library when I was 8, 9, 10 years old, was raised there, started volunteering there, started working there, and now I have 20 years of experience working in libraries, the last 3 years in Ramsey County Library. And prior to that, I worked about 17 years for the St. Paul Public Library System. Managing, the last position and role that I had was managing the Arlington Hills Library, which is also a conjoined facility with a rec center and a library in there. Happy to be here, happy to engage with you all, but wanted to make sure that I share a little bit of background on myself. Today, we are talking about Ramsey County Libraries. So we know about St. Paul Public Libraries. Ramsey County Libraries has 7 libraries, 7 facilities that we have, and they're each named after the city that they reside in. We have 3 regional libraries, 2 medium-sized libraries, and 2 smaller libraries. The library, North St. Paul, is one of our tiny but mighty libraries in our library system. In addition to that, we are also part of MELSA. MELSA is a metro-wide consortium that allows us to borrow, lend, and send materials to other library systems if we don't have it in our collection. We also use that as a sort of a strategic method for us to contract with trainers or connect with a variety of services for us. And I say Ramsey County Library because we're separate from the St. Paul Library System, and so if I could make that distinction, we serve the suburban Ramsey County, and so the city of St. Paul has their own public library system. In 2022, we worked on developing our strategic priorities. And what you have in front of you displayed here is the strategic priorities for 2023 through 2025. It includes extending our welcome, growing our partnerships and community presence, and building resources to create positive change. This was through a year of intense community engagement with the public. We engaged quite a bit of folks who came into our libraries. We engaged our staff, our team, we engaged our community partners, and we also engaged with organizations that had individuals who did not come into our libraries. And so we were very intentional about making sure that those voices were also heard and known so that we can continue to expand our services. And so that's sort of what grounds our services that you see today and sort of provides us a direction for moving forward. Because essentially what we have seen is that we do our job as library staff within our walls very well. We have a phenomenal team that provides an excellent collection that provides phenomenal service. And in addition to that, individuals have obstacles of accessing our resources and services. And so here I have displayed is our social vulnerability index on the left side. The social vulnerability index includes 16 indexes that and variables that provides information on potential barriers that individuals may have to economic success, health, well-being, et cetera. And so are the folks here familiar with that? I could go through the laundry list. It includes components such as persons below 150% federal poverty level, individuals unemployed, households with housing cost burdens at or above 30% of their income, no high school diploma, individuals without insurance, ages 65 and older, ages 17 and younger, persons with a disability, single-parent households, and children under 18. Persons who speak English less than well, minority populations, housing structures of 10-plus units, mobile home housing units, units with more people than rooms, housing units without vehicles, and then also group quarters. And so looking at this vulnerability index and looking at where North St. Paul sits, which is a bit in the middle of the screen, you'll see that North St. Paul is in a dark, dark red. That essentially means that 75% of the individuals in the city fall within the social vulnerability index. And, should one or two more situations occur, that leads to, a potentially tragic situation for the community here. And so in addition to that, the left side is a bit more of an aggregate that comes from the social vulnerability index. And then on the right side, I have information from Minnesota Compass. And so, I'm sure that you are all familiar with the demographics of the city here. This is a predominantly white city with 60.8% of the community white and 39.2% of the community as individuals of color. About 20% of the households here live under 150% of the federal poverty level. A good quarter of the population here are individuals under 17, and about 13% are 65 and older. The cost burden renter is at 58.2%. The cost burden is essentially a household that pays 30% or more of their income towards rent or housing. And so that's quite a significant number at 58.2%. And then the homeowner is at 15.6%. And so as we look at these demographics, this helps us guide sort of the types of service that we provide at the library, why we provide them, and how we continue to provide access and services to the community. So just a sort of quick snapshot, I'm sure that you all have access to fantastic demographers that'll likely give you additional information a little bit more in depth than this. So here to talk a little bit about North St. Paul Library itself. If you've driven past that community center, you've likely seen a bright blue box that jumped out near the entrance there, and that is our brand new book drop. And so now folks can drop off their books before and after the library is open. That has been a huge request from the community members here, and we're happy to be working with you in partnership to make sure that is available for folks. The North St. Paul Library is open about 35 hours per week. So not a ton of hours, but then we do provide library services 5 days a week with staffing of about 2.6 FTE. So that FTE spans across 4 individuals that provide and make sure that services are running at that facility. The facility itself is about 3,200 square feet in terms of what the library occupies. So, City of North St. Paul in 2023. We made 763 new library cards. So these are new library card registrants, people who are coming into the North St. Paul Library for the first time to get their library card. We also had almost 53,000 visits, 53,000 people who walked in through our doors last year, with about 90,000 plus items checked out. So 53,000 people came in to check out over 90,000, and of that 90,000, about 40,000 of them were children's materials. So about half of the materials that were checked out were for children. Public computer use, there were about over 7,000 sessions. There were almost 8,000 sessions of unique user IDs hopping in and accessing our public internet, leading to over 6,000 hours, and then also 6,000 unique users that connected to our Wi-Fi there during the time that we've been open. In addition to sort of the nuts and bolts of library, books and computers, et cetera, we also added fax services in 2023. And that has been very popular. So January of 2023, we finally added fax services. And we also, in 2023, we also increased our public computers from 6 in 2022 to 14 in 2023. And that has been really great in sort of relieving the amount of pressure there was for folks to get off of the computer. And so now there are more computers readily accessible. So with that, we receive about 11,000 reference questions. And reference questions essentially means looking for looking for a very specific resource. I have a research question to ask you. And it's not so much the, hey, where is this thing, or can you help me? Just log on a computer. And so very unique engagements with the 11,000. That could be, between 2 minutes of help to 30 minutes of help for each individual and each question. Youth programs are a heavy part of the service that we provide there. We have story times among other programs, and we had over 2,000 participants, 2,500 participants come in just for our youth programming alone. We also have really fantastic partnerships with others. And so in a future photo, you'll see a street sweeper. That was really popular. Anything with the fire truck, always extremely popular. We always get between 60 to 100 people. Plus, we try to limit it at that point whenever we partner with others for any of our youth programming. But then our partnerships and our outreach also heavily occur over at the North St. Paul Library. You'll see quite a bit. We have caseworkers who come in, social workers who come in and engage with their clients. We have, Workforce Solutions send out satellite services, service centers, send navigators. We connect and we work with the school district 622. We also were the library for MetroFlex. And so they brought their young people in weekly to use the library. In addition to that, we were, I think, in 2021, a vaccination site by the community. And additionally, we are still currently, to this day, a COVID test distribution location. And so if you do need COVID tests, feel free to hop on by. They usually run out in a flurry, and we attempt to, procure more COVID tests to distribute. In addition to that, we also, the North St. Paul location was the only location that qualified with the to distribute the state park passes. And so that's the one location in suburban Ramsey County that distributes state park passes. So feel free to hop on by, check out a state park pass, and go visit a state park. All right, so what do people appreciate? These are sort of anecdotal notes that we've heard heavily throughout the years here. The relationship with staff have been probably the number one piece. They feel like it's a little bit less intimidating to go to the North St. Paul Library compared to other libraries where they feel like it may be a little bit more institutional, or like they have to have complete understanding of a subject before asking a question. And so the relationship with staff has been likely the key. The library staff there, they know the names of the regular individuals who hop on in. And that's been very helpful for folks to really have a better understanding of what services could we potentially provide in the future. The cozy atmosphere, people know that they like the smaller library compared to the bigger library. Walkability, we have a lot of people who walk to the library who don't drive. And computer help, that's likely, North St. Paul is likely a location where people are able to get that concentrated 30 minutes with an individual instead of the, hey, you know what, gotta help you here, but I gotta go back to the desk because there's a long line of folks waiting for services. The printer copy fax machine, that's probably the number one heavily used and requested service that we provide. We could probably add about 3 more and it wouldn't be enough. Notary on site. So we have a notary on site, and that individual likely notarizes documents pretty regularly. It is a free service that we provide. And also the children's area. People note that they love that the children's area is a little bit more separated. The kids can be a little bit more noisy. They really like the space. And what are people asking for? People always ask for extended hours. People are always hopping on into the library before and after the library is open, and asking for access to such things as the computer, the printer, and copy machines. People are looking for space to meet. People are wanting to meet with their teachers, mentors, tutors. They want to have their virtual interviews at the library. They want to have their telehealth visits with their doctors and nurses at the library. They are looking to have court hearings. People are always requesting for headphones so that they can have a little bit more of a private conversation, though we are not able to provide them that extremely private space. People are trying to engage with their caseworkers, sometimes in person, sometimes virtually. Study groups are always looking for a space to meet. Sometimes they'll just huddle around a table and try to keep it low. And then also community groups. Girl Scouts are, they use our community rooms quite a bit. And I think in addition to Girl Scouts, there would be plenty other organizations and small groups that would like to use spaces. And then one thing that we always get a note of when someone is looking for the library for the first time is like ease of finding the facility, of like, hey, I didn't know where to go, and I actually didn't expect to turn around here, but I found it. So we always generally get a comment about that in terms of findability of the facility itself. So that is the end of my presentation, just wanting to talk very briefly about libraries and what we do, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
Thank you very much. I really appreciate your presentation. The slide that you said there's 53,000 visits, that was just for the 1 year, and that was just for the North St. Paul branch?
Correct.
How do you define a visit?
A visit is an individual who walks into the facility. So we have a little door counter.
Okay. Well, I'm honestly surprised by that. That's, the quick math says we're averaging 30 people an hour that you're open. That's amazing.
Is that counter on going into the library or into the building?
Into the library.
Okay, the library door.
Thank you for your presentation. Can you speak a little bit to some of the youth programming that is offered?
Sure, we have a variety of youth programming that we generally offer. We always have a weekly story time that folks know about. We also have a couple passive programs that we generally provide as well. And then during the summer, we have our summer reading and learning program. And so that's where we get quite a bit of people coming in. And at that, for the summer reading program, the summer learning program, we contract with like fancy folks, right? So like we have like jugglers come in, and we have like people who bring in snakes and animals, and then that also that just draws in a lot of people. I think the street sweeper was there, the fire truck, I believe that was at North St. Paul, maybe potentially a year ago or so. That was very popular. But then engaging the young people has always been a priority. In North St. Paul, the North St. Paul library manager position also facilitates our system-wide youth programs. And so whatever is happening system-wide, the manager also makes sure that it happens over at North St. Paul.
Thank you.
How does the 35 hours compare to the other libraries about being open?
Sure. North St. Paul is open 35 hours, as well as Mounds View. Mounds View is the only other library that's open with the limited hours. I can't recall on the top of my head what the numbers are for some of the other libraries, but I believe New Brighton and White Bear Lake, those are open about 5 or 6 more hours, and so one additional day in the week. And then our regional libraries, which are larger libraries, they're open about, I believe, like 53 hours, and they're open 7 days a week.
Can you speak a little bit to the Park Pass
Oh, the state park pass. So we partner with state parks, and essentially they provide us with a limited number of passes, and we're able to check it out. You get a little receipt, or you get the pass, and then you're able to go to a state park for the next 7 days. And so it is. I'm simplifying it, and it is literally that easy to be able to access a state park. So you won't have to pay for admission for the entrance for your vehicle while having that pass with you.
You said we're the only one that has that?
The North St. Paul is the only library in suburban Ramsey County that has it. I believe the St. Paul Public Library System may have 3 or 4 locations that have access to that, and sparingly also at other library systems, Anoka, Hennepin, et cetera.
So if you were to check out the library, or if you were to check out the state park pass, it has to come back to the North St. Paul Library.
I will have to follow up. It will have to come back to North St. Paul. So I think you might get a disposable one, and then you won't have to worry about it. Like I think we keep the pass itself. You might get a receipt. And so then you don't have to worry about it. But then if an individual who was residing in, like, let's say Shoreview was to drive over, they would have to drive over. They wouldn't be able to request it or access it from the Shoreview Library. They would have to come to North St. Paul to get that.
Thank you.
And we qualify for that because of the income level. So there's the income threshold that the state parks require us to be under, and the city of North St. Paul is the only city that qualified for that.
Are there any limitations or opportunities in the near future that you feel would be a priority for the libraries?
You know, as we look at our strategic priorities, I know that it's like very, very general for our strategic priorities, but what we want to essentially do is help people seek prosperity. And we're really seeing people struggle, the individuals who come into our libraries, with the lack of mobility, not having vehicles, being confined to this, a general area of their home, looking for work. And so we have a lot of folks coming in, applying and looking for jobs. And then we have significant digital literacy needs of individuals who don't have cell phones, and also not being able to create an email account, since a lot of email accounts now require you to have a phone to verify, identity or, just security access. Those are going to be pretty intense work that we're going to do. In addition to that, one thing that we're always trying to do is get outside of our library and let folks know that we're here. We did a thing in Maplewood since we renovated the library, where we sent a postcard to every single household within a 1 mile radius of the facility. And we've gotten so many people who said, I didn't even know a library was here. I've lived here for 5 years. We're going to likely do something very similar to that, to just let folks know that we're here, we're around, we're just here to help. And we're going to continue to partner with folks. I know that the food shelf is right down the road and isn't too far away. But what are other things that we can do to continue to lift that up for folks? And in addition to that, computer access, I believe we may have had a couple conversations of how do we continue to provide computer access before and after our libraries close. New Brighton Library has a model where we have our computers in the hallway of the community center, and that essentially just means a lot of people are using the computers in the hallway before and after the library is closed and open. And so, likely just trying to provide additional resources, amplifying what we have, and then making sure that we're responsive to community needs as that continues to change.
3,200 square feet, you said the library is about. How does that fit for you? Is it too small, too big, where does that look if you were looking at a space, what size would, because you mentioned all these meeting rooms and different things, sounds like 3,200 square feet's a little tight for that.
Right. In terms of the space and in terms of what would work really well for the library and what people are asking for is that meeting space, that space to get together, whether that be publicly or whether that be in a more private spaces. And at our library in Maplewood, we increased our study rooms for 1 to 2 people from 3 to 9. And then we also added some medium-sized meeting rooms and some larger meeting rooms. And so in terms of like looking at the square footage of the facility itself, we wouldn't really be looking at doubling it just because people love how cozy that library is in particular. Potentially like 5,000 square feet, that'll likely satisfy some of the needs. Though, like I would say, I'm saying this, and I would also need to, work with my partner and my colleagues in Ramsey County to have conversations about what's realistic and how are we being responsive to community need. But, quite a bit of the conversations and what the public is asking for is one or two persons meeting rooms, and then also potentially like the 5 to 6. Like, how do we get some spaces like that in there?
Well, right now, of course, with the grant, we have, it's the remodeling, so that's what, if we wanted to partner and, get more space, that's something we need to, discuss, because if it's going forward with the remodel, then it's a good time to be able to understand the needs.
Yeah. I think we would have quite a bit more teens in the space if we had a larger teen area. Right now, we have a teen corner, strong and mighty, with a really cool looking chair there, but there's always an insatiable need for spaces for the public to gather and just exist. That is, one thing that people always talk about is like, how do I just want a space to sit down. I just want a space to just be here. The library is, the social infrastructure for a lot of the people who come into the library. Sometimes that's like their one and only engagement with others. And so we're very cognizant that, we provide people an excellent service if they're coming in and their only engagement is with us, knowing how fragile that could be, especially coming out of the pandemic.
As far as any issues when it comes to crowd control or security or anything like that from any of the libraries? Are they all pretty, is there any security that are in libraries, or is everything been good as far as being able to control everything?
Right now, we don't have any significant concerns for the North St. Paul Library. I think the only concern would be like, there's no sightline for the restrooms. And so that's just it's just in a very separate area of the facility itself. But then otherwise, our service desk sits right up to the entrance. And so whenever anyone is walking in, we're greeting them. And they're aware that we see them, and they're aware that we see them, and we're all engaging with each other and folks that come in, yeah. No significant security concern right now.
Well, I'd like to thank you for your presentation, and the demographics were very eye-opening to me. So, and to understand how many people walk through your door a day, and it's pretty impressive. And I do agree, it's a small facility. It's not, my girls and I go in there, not often, but we do, and it's pretty small. It's intimate.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for coming. This was for the time and energy you put into the presentation. I learned a lot. You're more than books. You are a part of the community, so thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Before Peng departs from us, I would like for her to talk a little bit about some of the other partnerships, interactions that they have. She mentioned about there's times where social workers will come out to the library. She also mentioned that the workforce solutions. Ramsey County has, a lot of programs and staff, and the library is a vehicle for them to be able to provide their services. Ramsey County has done an extensive change in how their delivery of services are, and it's much more of a decentralized model than it has ever been in the past. And so you can see this is where they really reach. You know, when I was in Ramsey County, it was concentrated areas of poverty was one of the major focuses, and you're hearing it still is. So can you just touch base on that and the importance of the library and how it's playing that in that role?
Sure. Libraries are very unintimidating spaces to be in and exist. And we continue to see that in terms of like when caseworkers are recommending places for folks to visit. Do you want to go downtown with your 3 kids and a big stroller with your 3 children and try to figure out and navigate where to go? Or do you want to go to the North St. Paul Library? Or do you want to go to, Maplewood Library or any other facility? And folks often pick the library. And it has become a very popular space for caseworkers, for social workers, for anyone who's working with their clients to engage with the individuals that they're serving. And so we see them quite a bit coming in. And we see this not only for the departments that I've listed, there's so many more, public health nurses come in and see folks. That's a partnership that we're going to be starting pretty soon as well. But it's unintimidating. We try to be as friendly as possible, so it feels less like an institution. And it is one of our last remaining third spaces in our community. I think when we did some community engagement last year, someone said, "Yeah, this library is like my cabin. I can't afford a cabin, but I can come to the library," and that continues to hold very strong in communities.
Any other questions for Peng? Peng, I thank you very much. Excellent job.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As I pull this up, I'm very grateful that Peng Yang could be here tonight and really talk about the importance of the library here in the city of North St. Paul. Being an ex-Ramsey County employee for many, many years, I think we all know the history of the library. Back in many years ago, the Ramsey County, through budget cuts and budget decisions, made the choice to close the city of North St. Paul's library. And actually sold the facility in which they were in. I think the decision from the city of North St. Paul of the value.
I was just going to say, we've been getting emails, the North St. Paul Library was not North St. Paul, because I get,
Yeah,
why did
it
you
was-
sell that and then build it
it
out
was-
of there? So it
yeah.
was a county building, the
was a
county
county building.
sold it,
Yep.
nothing to do with us. So I
Yep,
just
had
wanted
nothing-
to get that out there,
absolutely,
because I get
that's-
a lot of emails on that.
Yep, that's
Thank you.
correct. And then, I think North St. Paul saw the value in the library, and, and that's how it ended up being an addition to the current community center where it's at. And even though they're in a 20-year lease and there's not a current operational dollars that are given, they did put a significant dollar into that facility when they first got into there. And again, now it's telling you that it's changed quite a bit in the delivery of services. With that on top of it, Ramsey County has changed their model on how they deliver services. Instead of having to go to downtown, they've picked up much more of a decentralized approach to it. COVID had a lot of impact on that, finally getting people to realize you can provide services not just in one location, but in multiple locations. So I think Peng Bang really showed you the interest, the need for a library in the city. And I think she did an excellent job. So that was one thing that we had to discuss. And we will talk more about, in a future meetings, the lease and the options in looking into the future, especially, you heard that, that the library may be interested in expanding from where they're currently at. I think when they first built their facility, I think it was like about 2,700 square feet. There was an amendment for an additional 500 for some more, that's really outside their original space, and now they're looking at the potential of expanding to about 5,000 square feet to accomplish some of those other additional meeting rooms, in which a navigator is somebody who can provide additional services to the residents. So now we're going to move on to reviewing requests for interest.
Dan?
Yep, I'm sorry.
Pardon my interruption, I apologize, but before we do, if you don't mind clarifying one point you made.
Sure.
You just said that we're going to be discussing the lease of the library in a future meeting?
Correct. Yes, yeah. Because, I mean, part of it's going to be the structure. I mean, the current lease runs from 2010 to 2030. The city manager, Brian, and myself had met with Peng Yang and then a representative from their property management department. And the sense and feeling that I had gotten from the conversation is that, at the time that the lease was to expire in 2030, that they believed or they felt that there would be rent that would end up being charged to them. So I think there's an appetite for that. They also let us know, because they do 6-year capital improvement plans, that there wasn't anything identified at this point in time on their capital improvement plan to put in, that one-time capital dollars into that. But I think those are discussions that we need to talk about. How would that look moving into the future? Obviously, part of this whole financial analysis at the end is going to be based upon not just, dollars and cents, but they do play an important role as far as the impact that it'll have on the residents, but, on the services that are being provided also. So we will have more of a discussion on it at that point in time and get city council's feel of how that should be structured.
I was also more curious about the current one as well. There's been some conversation in the past that there's been some not concrete information about how we got to the ending at the 2030. So I just wanted some information given to us so we all see concrete information that this goes to 2030.
Correct, and we can have that discussion at that
Awesome.
time, yeah.
And also, then what I brought up a few times too is, at 2010, well, it was started in 2004 and then opened in 2005. What happened in that 5-6 years that the lease didn't start then? And I've asked
I
that
believe-
on many
Yeah,
occasions.
again, we'll have more conversation, and we'll also have, an attorney's opinion on the lease part to it. But the lease, yes, you're correct. I mean, the lease started earlier, and that would appear to be, I mean, it was approved by the build-out and the investment from Ramsey County was approved by the Ramsey County Board of Commissioners back in 2004. Unfortunately, nobody can find a fully executed lease.
Either party.
Either party.
They just threw $500,000 addition on a building and nobody has paperwork.
Yeah, and then in 2010, somehow, for some reason, they were looking for that lease, and no one had found, no one could come up with it, neither party. And so then they routed another document around, and that's kind of been the date that they've kind of went with. To solidify that is kind of unfortunate from the city of North St. Paul's side, is that I think there was the amendment, and Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was 2018, where they did an amendment to add additional space. What I had talked about was approximately an additional 500 square feet to the lease. And it references again back to that 2010 date which kind of solidifies and signed by both parties. So it kind of solidified and changed kind of in certain ways the original 20-year lease, which, you know, one could argue should have began somewhere in about 2005 and should be expiring in 2025 versus 2010 and ending in 2030. But I think that's kind of where we're landed at right now. And I think Brian's even reached out to the city's attorney, and I think that's her opinion onto it too. But we certainly can examine that a little bit more. So if we can, in part of the packet was a draft of the request for interest, and really seeking city council's input, thoughts on this. And it's really to try to get it out there, advertise it, find out what type of interest from individuals. You can see in the letter of interest submission that, you know, we're requesting that they give the name and the primary contact of interested entity or organization, description of the proposed program, services, activity, including a concise summary of how the proposal would respond to the project objectives. Please also describe how the proposal would produce positive social, environmental, and/or cultural impacts. Description of the space and utilities needs for the proposal, as well as typical hours of operation. Indicative furniture, fixtures, and equipment would be provided by the user. Identify the length of the commitment to the facility, and if the user would be able to provide rental payments. If so, what would be the price per square foot that the user would be willing to pay, and indicate whether additional staff or other support from the city would be required for the proposal. If we scroll up a little bit higher up, you can see where the project objectives are, and that the city is seeking partners to transform the community center into a year-round community space able to serve all North St. Paul residents. The city's vision is a community center that could be a flexible, multicultural space able to provide for evolving needs of the community. The community center could be a hub offering farmers and craft markets, educational programs, seasonal and cultural events and celebrations, and social gatherings. A safe place for the youth to foster positive socialization and other recreational space for sports and youth-targeted activities. A safe and comfortable place for veterans and seniors to socialize, engage in crafts, dance, fitness, and recreation. A demonstration hub to showcase the city's commitment to green building practices. Renovation may include solar energy, electric vehicle charging stations, and other improvements to promote environmental health in the community. So really, this was something that City Council wanted us to do to kind of be able to gauge what kind of interest there is. We've had a couple of public meetings here on the community center next steps. We've heard people come up. I think there's the theater group. This is our way. Let's get them in writing and find out what they're really looking at, what kind of the space needs are. What this does is part of a next step is going to be that we're going to have to engage a professional architectural engineering firm that's going to actually have to do some sort of like space planning of the facility to really update what the true costs are going to be, and categorically for the deed grant, we'll need that information. And so this way we can see what the true costs for the facility are really going to be, and the interest from any partners. That information then will feed into all of the community engagements to make sure that these are the services that will meet the needs for the residents. So we're really looking at comments, thoughts on this request for interest, because we'd like to be able to get it out sooner than, as soon as we possibly can.
Overall, I very much like it. I really appreciate the work you put into it. And the talks that we've had, I believe if we end up going forward with the community center, the grants that we've received, we've talked about using the grants for refurbishment of the building. And in your summary, you talk about the grants could be used for program development. Is program development use on the table for the grants? And if not, are we misleading in the summary for this RFI?
Well, I think as far as program development is really more of a spatial component to it. In other words, we just had the libraries here. They're in a confined 2,700 square foot area. The 500's outside of that wall. If they wanted 5,000 and you were going to make it contiguous space, you would end up having to remove some sort of wall, build up other walls outside of there. To me, that's the programmatic component that we would be assisting with the grant dollars, and that would be, to me, in all indications of what I've seen in the grant, that would be an eligible cost. But we also want to find out, outside of the grant component to it, is for a program to come into the facility, would there be additional needs or from city resources? That could be as far as staffing. It could be so many different other components to it. We want to make sure that we're asking the right questions to open this completely, totally up so we can be able to give some sort of better information for city council to make that final decision.
Agreed. I just didn't want to be misleading to the people we gave this out for, thinking that, okay, they can put in for $1 million of this grant for their own program. So I wanted other people's opinions on how they were reading this RFI, because when I read it, it was that part of this grant might possibly be open for the partnerships program development, not necessarily hard building partners.
We'll take, good point if you've interpreted it that way. It certainly wasn't the intent. We'll do a re-review of that language to make sure that it's clear that that's not the intent of it. So we certainly can do that. I do have to give credit where credit is due. I didn't write this. So, we have our community development director, Brandy Howe, is the one who wrote this. So credit where credit is due. Other thoughts, questions on this?
I'd be interested to kind of see if we could ask for, if they have like a short report or some sort of like annual report.
So kind of an annual report on their organization itself and see what they can, okay.
Yeah, oftentimes you see them and
Yep.
it's for accountability for funders.
Yeah, for many nonprofits, yeah, absolutely.
And I would be interested to understand maybe a little bit more about the populations that they've worked with in the past.
Okay.
I just appreciate the document. We're laying everything out as far as what expectations and partnership, and get the information out sooner. Thank you.
Would city council like to see the final version with some of these things incorporated before it actually goes out, or? We'll make some adjustments to it and get it out.
Thank you.
Was there anything added regarding other facilities that some of these community or some of these organizations have used in the past, have rented from? So for example, the theater group had used Maplewood. Say Maplewood decided they didn't want them anymore. I'm just using this as an example, so bear with me. In my past with facility rentals, we have asked people not to come back. So I think it would be of interest to find out some of these places that have utilized community spaces, to get a background on if they've been, say, they used a space at a university for 10 years. They decide that, well, North St. Paul sounds nice. Well, did the university not want them there? Is there any references that we could utilize and ask about?
Maybe something on references on past space rentals.
That would be
Leave it
great.
at that.
That's good.
I'd be interested to also maybe know a little bit about if what kind of level of flexibility they may have too, in their programming and services and things like that.
As far as what they charge or what they offer?
Well, what they offer, yeah. I mean, sometimes, maybe it's a different population that they'll need to start serving if they come to North St. Paul, because we have a different demographic, for example,
Sure. And that's what I was thinking too, because when it comes to like some of these performance places, they do charge quite a bit. Can our population afford to take advantage of some of the services?
So really, we're looking at something about their adaptability to changing demographics is in certain ways. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
I have a list.
You got a list? Oh, no.
What vehicle do we use once we put this out? Just something we do on our website? Is there an area out there that, the RFI, that these organizations would know where to look?
Yeah, I hate to do this to her.
there's an advertisement plan.
Yeah, advertisement plan, published in the city news. We put a whole list together. We kind of brainstormed on this.
Yep, it's there.
So it's there, yeah. Published in city newsletter, published on the city of North St. Paul website. Just kidding. We got to put that T in there, or H in there. Published in the Star Tribune, published in the Minnesota Council of Nonprofits website, published on League of Minnesota Cities website, direct mail to Ramsey County Library, direct mail to Ramsey County, direct mail to School District 622, direct mail to the theater group since they've been here at workshops in the past.
Thank you. Next question is the language that in this RFI standard and customary? Like, to what a normal I mean, as it sits now, and then you've gained a lot of feedback from council, is this standard language? I mean, we're asking them what they would be willing to pay. Is that standard for an RFI? Or are we just looking for interest?
I think those, well, the individual who, Brandy, found a template out there that was utilized. And yeah, we may have added a few additional questions because at the end of the day, one of the things that heard pretty loud and clear is that what is the potential revenue stream that, that anything's going to generate. And so we needed to try to incorporate that. Now, I'm anticipating they're going to give you a pretty wide range. There's really not going to be the greatest benefit in the world. But at least what it does is it allows the start of a discussion if there's truly that interest in moving down the road to eventually develop some sort of contract, agreement, lease, whatever you want to call it.
I'm also reading on here on site meetings, if I understand it correctly, the opportunity to tour the building, existing interior space will be held on a specific date and time. Are we not going to be flexible?
Oh, we certainly can. We're just throwing something out there and, again, we have limited resources within the city itself. So we kind of like picked a date we can also put in there, or, you can schedule something if it works out for both parties.
I would hope that we would be flexible. Length of time in which this is going to be posted?
Customary is usually at least 3 weeks.
Yeah, thank you. So as I sat here, I heard a lot of parameters that were looking to be potentially added on to this. Do we want to narrow a search now? Do we want to see what it is and bring them in? The reason I'm asking is, are we soliciting for interest, or are we picking somebody? I mean, there's a lot of check marks that, council is put out there that we'd like to see this, we'd like to see that, most of which are going to have 90% of what we asked for, or should have it ready because this isn't their first rodeo. But I just want to make sure that we aren't disallowing someone because they may not have one or two of the things that we're looking for.
I don't necessarily think that this is written in a way that disqualifies anybody from not hitting all of them. I think it's basically here's the overall objectives, and that that's important for them to be aware of, that is City Council's objective. That's what's been put into the grant documents, and so it's how do they feel that they fit within that component to it. We're not eliminating anybody. We're going to bring all of the information that we get forth to City Council to have that discussion. Right now, we've heard from basically one group that's been here a couple times at the workshop. That's where I wanted to make sure that we heard from the library, because they've been in the community center for a number of years. And so it's kind of that opening dialogue, so we're aware. Part of that is that then with that information, and then you combine that with the community engagement, you can find out what does fit, what doesn't fit to inform City Council. It's not to exclude anybody.
Because what I was hearing, the additional parameters that were being sought after, is your intent then to put all those parameters in this document, or the document's going to go out with some minor modifications?
Well, to me, the parameter, there hasn't been a lot of parameters. It's more or less more information that's being requested from an individual or entity.
But do they need to provide that at the time they express their interest?
That's a question that really comes to City Council, if you want to see it at that time or you want to see it at a later date. There's nothing, holding you back from trying to get that information up front.
Other than it could eliminate others who would have an interest that might not have that information available.
That's always a possibility, absolutely. So
As I sat here, I saw we took the top of the funnel and narrowed it dramatically before we've had a chance to get the document out there.
And that's why we tried to leave it as kind of, the objectives have to be there. We were asking, the letter of interest submission just to kind of find out what's out there. We weren't being as restrictive. But I also see that there is a need for additional information. I leave that up to City Council for the direction on that.
All right, thank you. I'm done.
You came across something where I want to reiterate, because I thought it was really a good point, your time and date there, date and, time. I think we also need to have in there that, they need to call and make sure they schedule, because we don't want people walking in the library and saying, hey, we're here to look at space. We see you got it there. So I think we have to put something that there's tenant in place now, we need to schedule this. You can't stop by, you know what I'm saying? Just because I don't think it should be interrupted as far as people going in there to look at that without scheduling an appointment.
Right, so we will have a specific date and time that individuals can come there, and then there'll be another sentence that if for some reason this doesn't work out, that if you contact us to schedule a time, can't prevent somebody from going into a public
No,
space.
but you can
if
tell
that's what
them,
they-
you can tell them that, they're not going to help you. So I just want to make sure that it doesn't,
Yeah, I
wear
mean,
and
we
tear in
could,
there.
I mean, yeah, we can add,
just a little bit,
Something in there.
like when you do an open house, if somebody has a house for sale and they have renters there, don't bother the renters with your questions type of thing.
well, staff would have to be present at the time, whether it's this date or a scheduled date, then so we should be able to alleviate that
I'm
again.
just saying drop-ins. I guess that's what I was trying to get.
And,
If you just discourage them.
yeah, okay.
Yep, thank you.
If I can make a suggestion in regards to the advertisement plan, I was wondering if we could also look at expanding the school districts. I know that we have 622, but as Pang mentioned, there's North Metro Flex that is in town, and probably a lot of other smaller schools or charter schools.
Do you know some other ones outside of the Metroflex? And if you do, you can just send an email and we'll definitely include those.
Okay.
Is that good?
Dan, to piggyback on Lisa, the gentleman that spoke pardon me, I apologize. The gentleman that spoke last, he had a gray sweater on.
From Woodbury? He was a Woodbury guy.
CSI. I thought he was from Colorado or something. They did this all over.
Yeah, but I think
I know who you're,
he was a Woodbury resident. He said, thank
Okay.
you for letting me speak. I live in Woodbury.
I thought he provided staff his contact information too.
did we receive any contact? So you would like for us to reach out to that individual too?
Yeah, he also
Okay.
expressed
Sure.
interest
Yep.
at the workshop. Oh, okay. Okay.
Other thoughts?
I'm good. Anybody else?
Yeah, nothing.
All right. Think. Just got her finger up, so.
Yeah, just one more. I would maybe think about emailing or sharing this with different news outlets. So like, or there's a lot of like culturally specific magazines and things like that in the communities, different communities, and there's also like cultural associations as well. Thank you.
If you can help out at all on, yeah, perfect. Thank you. And then how our format, if there's no further questions, then how our format has been to give, and we've got a very limited time, so I would say if there's any public that wants to make any comments on tonight's presentations, I would say we got 4 minutes, so 1 minute per person if we got 4 individuals that would like to say something.
Anybody? Come on up. Eileen.
I'm going to do it properly and introduce myself. Elaine Barton, 2021 Burke Avenue East. Just a couple quick things. Are you timing me?
Yes.
Start in about 30 seconds.
There you go.
First off, could we get the presentation that was made by the deputy director into the minutes? Because it wasn't in the packet, and there was some good information in there that I think people who aren't here, don't watch the meeting, might like to have. Also, just a comment. I've been looking at prior years of use for the library, and just based upon what little I heard this evening, last year would effectively have doubled the number of visits and cards that are normally made in a year, which is really quite striking and much better than some of our neighboring larger libraries. I think that gets to the point of a small facility is appealing to some people. The other thing, just information to get, is what does it cost to operate this library currently at the status and the hours that it's opened? I was kind of surprised not to hear that tonight because I thought that's a valid question. Regarding the request for interest, I guess my question is, how's it going to be published in the Tribune? Is that going to be in the public notices? And if so, is there a way to create a condensed version of that that could be published in the St. Paul paper somewhere, or in the suburban papers? We still have suburban papers, so that gets us beyond just the confines of what we know about North St. Paul. And I don't know if it would refer them to the Tribune if it's going to be a public notice, or if it could be referred to somebody at City Hall to just get them a copy of the letter, or have the letter on the website and they can just go on the website and find it. But I just think that could be expanded a little bit to get a larger audience that is also more local than the Minneapolis Tribune. That was it. How'd I do?
To go off your point, I would like to answer one thing, because you did bring something that I completely forgot about. Last year, the Maple Library was closed for quite a while for remodeling.
Yeah.
So that could have had quite a factor on it if they weren't open.
No, even from prior years. Generally, those numbers don't double.
No, exactly, but I mean, for
mean,
maybe a
that-
little bit of an influx being closed.
So
for-
now you all go to the library and just go in and out of the door. Constantly. It's every time.
Running tours.
Thank you.
I'd like to know how they measure things as well. What's success
Yeah,
from their perspective?
thank you.
Thank you, Elaine.
Got 2 minutes, anybody else? Minute and a half?
I didn't know about the free pass to the parks. Or if you have to come in there with your 1040 and say, I'm eligible or I'm not eligible. Interesting. Anyway, you've bantied about in every one of your printings, veterans. As a recently certified 100% disabled veteran, I want to say, what are you going to be offering? Just don't put that in there. Today I called one of the service representatives that we have here, and we're very lucky. We have both of them, American Legion and VFW. And what could you possibly, was my question, need or want the city to provide to veterans that you don't provide? And the answer was, we haven't got a clue. But I noticed that in your mailing list, you have not included the two service representatives that are in this city. Why haven't you sent that to the VFW also? Why isn't that an address? And I think your answer is going to be, we don't know.
Good point, thank you. All right, it's 6:30. Let me go back up. Call for, I don't think we have any business we need to discuss besides that, so can I call for adjournment?
So moved.
So move. Councilmember Cole?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Wong. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Give us a few minutes to prepare. How about 6:35, 5 minutes? Is that okay, everybody? Thank you.
You hurting?
I got an ortho for my.